Thanks for joining us today. Before we start, before I start with all the questions, I would like to know how did you start your company? And I know that you're a self-made entrepreneur, and you built it to where it is right now. And could you tell us a story about how you built your company?
Well, I come from a professional family. My father's been a very illustrious doctor, an ENT surgeon, Padma Bhushan, Dhanvantri, etc. I came from family where nobody did business. So for me to plunge into business was kind of unique and scary for the rest of the family, especially my father. Having said that, I did derive a lot of moral support from him once I decided and got into it. Started with textile unit in Kandivali Charco, and then got into real estate, doing badly in both, and ultimately chucked up the textile unit to finally plunge fully into real estate. So the first few years was quite tumultuous, to say that it was like starting with failure and going with failure and ending with failure. But the moment I gave up one, which was the textile unit, there was no looking back, and one knew that the horizon was very clear. I either had to swim and win, or I had to drown. So I think I swam, and that's the end of the story in terms of moving into the real estate as a business. And the interesting part, of course, has been that the decision making was very strange. The strangeness of the decision was that I couldn't decide which one to chuck up, whether textiles or real estate. And I got a notice from the union asking for 100% increase in wages in the textile unit. So that was a kind of a call that happened, that between the two businesses, I realized that somebody above signaled to me that you give up the textile units, which we did. We sold it off, and then there was no looking back, moved forward, and it's been beautiful since.
Thanks for that, because I share a very similar background to yours. My dad is a doctor. So when I decided to invest into Huron, and when I took it to India, and I'm also finding a couple of other companies now. It's such a you're in such a unique position. You do not have lot many people to advise you on where to start and how to start, and then you got into real estate, which is a very risky business. And how, before you started real estate, you said you shut down the textile business, right? So did you make money out of it? Did you exit
Oh, we lost
successfully?
it. We were losing money in both. So in reality, we were not making money. The interest and the repayment of loans couldn't happen. So in reality, I had to chuck up one because they were not doing well. And as I said, I didn't know which one to chuck up. We were destined to get into real estate completely. So I think somewhere down the line, you left it to guts or guts instinct.
Yeah.
When you couldn't decide, something decided for you. But yes, you were very clear that once I got into the real estate business, that was what was for me,
Yeah.
period.
And what would be the advice that you would give to the entrepreneurs who are probably burning a lot of cash, and they would continue believing that, okay, we should not quit, we should probably investing money into it, and there is, in economics, there's a concept called sunk cost, and you've already invested a lot of money, and you would just want to somehow get that money and get out of the business.
See,
What would be
there's
your
a
advice?
huge difference between the situation then and today. Today, capital is available to young entrepreneurs who have no money at all, have just got ideas and thoughts, and they have enough capital given to them for the purposes of starting any entrepreneurial activity. While those were not the case in my time. So we couldn't get money, we couldn't even get bank money, we couldn't get any enterprise money whatsoever. And hence we started small, grew exponentially, learnt a lot, and really built up the capital, built up the whole base and all. The amount money coming from banks was 20 years later. So it's not something which came in the beginning at all. So bank funds were not available. Private lending was usually high rates of interest, 2% per month. So that's the situation that we ran with. But anyway, long story, and the short story is the fact that one could overcome the situation at that point of time and the circumstances and the environment and still succeed.
Okay. And what was your starting point of real estate? Where
Oh,
did
we
you,
started in Malad, and then we went on to Warsaw, we went on to Mulund, we did Vile Parle, smaller projects. And later on, decided that we needed to do something large canvas, partly because the buildings were very fine, which were built by me. And but every time we built a building, we looked out of the window, and the neighboring sites were horrible to see because the infrastructure was bad. People adjoining you didn't make good buildings, and so on and so forth. So in reality, even though you have made good buildings, the result was negative in terms of the environment that was there. So when we took up a large plot, which is Powai here today, we realized that we needed to paint the entire canvas of infrastructure. And that's how we made a difference to the city, to our developments. So when people looked out of the window, they saw beautiful roads, beautiful gardens, beautiful infrastructure, and had all the amenities at walking distance.
right, so you started in Malad, and you raised your own capital, or
We had very small capital, so it was
Started
very, very small. So we really built very, very small and built up the whole thing. It took a long time, 10 years plus, to have even something worthwhile talked about.
what is your what are your thoughts on evolution of family business in India? Where I'm coming from is Holland Report basically publishes the rich list, and to us, the rich list is mainly, it's not about the rich and creating wealth, but it's also about tracking the top business people in India, and wealth creation one easy parameter to talk about. And what we've noticed is about 80 to 90% of the businesses in our rich list are family run. So what do you think is the evolution of?
I think as far as family businesses are concerned in India, India has been entrepreneurial, and family businesses have been the story for time immemorial. So I think basically you should ask, how did the rest of the businesses happen? Because it's the other way around. I think it was entirely family business, and if you look at 100 years ago, there was nothing else except family business. So in fact, the other businesses have evolved subsequently, and the other thing of public listing, public limited companies and others came much subsequently. So I would say that it's the other way around. I think family business, entrepreneurship, whether it's a small baniya who says aage dukaan piche makan, and small people like that, and those who built up enterprises like Tatas or Birlas or Mafatlals, and all these people put up large entrepreneurial activity. So both ends of the spectrum, we had entrepreneurs who did it. The business of listing and having good professionals came much subsequently. So it's the other way around.
So even even listing, right? Let's say even if you take a listed company too, I think they're still predominantly run by promoters and families.
Yeah, so basically who does the listing? Either it be entrepreneurs who would be supported by external investors, or people like that who would help startups. But that has happened in the last 10 years, not earlier. So earlier it was the entrepreneurs who built these companies, family businesses which built the companies, which ultimately may have become professional.
And in your case specifically, you had no business background. I think your brother
Was
there
with me.
Initially. And did you convince him to join you, or did you both plan and
I
start
think
it?
we just gravitated to each other. We didn't even have to discuss it. There was no discussion, and we got together.
Nice. That's great. So that's really cool. And where does your business stand right now? Would you have plans to go for a? Would you plan to bring in more governance to an IPO, or would you do a succession?
See, you must understand that an IPO is the most expensive way to really get capital, and or even a private equity. So as long as your growth can be funded with your internal generations and so on and so forth, you don't really need to go to the markets for the purpose of equity. If I do grow faster than my capital availability, obviously I will go into that kind of thing, which is not there in the near future. But the futures are not to see. We don't know, but not in the near future for sure.
We did speak about, I did briefly mention about China and India. comparing China and India. And if you look at the list of top, if you just case in point is a China rich list, right? We found out around 80 billionaires from the real estate sector in the China rich list, and possibly from India rich list we found around 10 to 15 billionaires. So, do you think India is, let's say, catching up with China over the next? Would you think India would catch up with China in the next 10, 15 years?
As far as the GDP growth is concerned, certainly we are moving up the value chain and we do it. To catch up with China is a big story and quite far, because China has moved far, far ahead of India in terms of growth and the overall GDP, the volume and value of the GDP that it stands today. As far as the pace of growth, maybe we are ahead of China and will continue to be for some time. But you must remember that the size of the total markets in China is far, far bigger. And for us to do that catch up, going to take a long period of time. So I don't see that happening. But yes, we will inch to get closer to them, but it will be inching and not really jumping to that level.
But the numbers are quite encouraging, right? Urbanization level.
Sure.
If government policies are all implemented and
sure.
if more people have money to spend, and I was reading in a research report which said for the first time in 20 years, Indian GDP is being driven by spending and by investments. So there is consumer spending that is happening now.
Sure.
So with all that put into effect, and the market itself is growing, isn't it?
I'm very much supportive of Mr. Narendra Modi and his ambition to make in India, to see that the spurt of growth in services and non-services and physical infrastructure. And I think he will succeed tremendously. The point is that the gap is very large. Yeah. And the question is that we also have a growth. Yeah. If not anything else, there is a growth on our end also. Yeah. But their base is so large that for us to do the catch-up is not going to be tomorrow.
Okay. About Indian real estate brands going local and global. So I was with another entrepreneur, listed, I was with Vikas Oberoi a couple of days back, and we were discussing about real estate brands, Indian real estate brands being very local. So he was saying that real estate brands have to be local, and if you go to another city, it's going to be difficult. It can only happen through JV and so on. But I think you have actually ventured out quite national, right? Do you think? First question is, is there a right and a wrong approach? Number two, would you see a lot more pan-India brands coming in India and from the real estate sector?
I think Mr. Oberoi is correct. Most of real estate worldwide is like that. So even in America, those who work in the metropolitan major cities like New York do not work outside. Those who work in the West Coast don't work in the East Coast in America. So yes, the answer is correct that it is very, very localized, and you need to really have your feet in the ground and be local in order to make real estate really successful. But there are possibilities of moving out, and there are opportunities which will keep coming. But you can't say that you will be a small person in each city and be great. Mm-hmm. That doesn't happen. You have to have substantial involvement in each of the places in order to make significant up the market or be on top of the market in each of the cities. That's not easy. So it is a problem to be pan-India. You can't be like, let's say, FMCG product, which can be all India, all world. I don't think real estate is similar.
But you've moved out.
We have, but it's limited.
Are you happy?
I'm very happy, but it's limited. You can't really, you don't have the, we've seen a positive trend as far as we are concerned, but there is a challenge when you move to new places. The rules are different, the background is different, the land laws are different, the approval systems are different, the kind of markets they are different, the thought process is different of the consumer. So I think too many things are there, and every time if you're not clued into everything, you're not going to be as good as your competition.
But now that all these policies, GST and the more digital approval system and everything is coming in place, and you've had a great run outside of Mumbai as well, would you continue pursuing more projects outside?
We will continue to process, but like for instance, we are not pan-India. We are on the west coast and south.
Yeah.
Pan-India would mean that I should be in the north, I should be in the east, I should be in the middle of the country, we should be in the west, and we should be in the south. That's a tall order. But the answer is, would I go into one or two more cities in the country? The answer would be yes. But I wouldn't say that I'll also be in Gwalior, and I'll also be in Mysore, and I'll also be in Coimbatore, and I will also be in whatever. I don't think that is practical. Like a jewelry store can open in all these places, I don't think real estate as a business is so fungible to move into each of these places easily.
Okay, let me put it this way. Would your brand be more pan?
Yes, that can be.
That can be, right? Like
That
Trump
can
is
be.
doing in
Yes,
India.
yes. You are absolutely hit the nail on the head. The brand can be all India. And I think some of the people like Tatas and others have already done that operation and are quite successful.
And you would stay away from the actual on-the-ground approvals, but more give a
Not
brand and
really. We
marketing.
would participate in that, but there would be a lot of local association that you would have to tie up in order to make it very successful.
Got it. No, you're very active in social media. I'm your follower as well. And one thing I've noticed is you always smile. And I think that's one lesson that all the entrepreneurs, especially who are in the sales-facing job, really need. And what is the importance of smiling?
First of all, you have to understand that if you're crying or you're moaning, nobody's going to be with you. So you really have to smile in order to, be acceptable and approachable to various people. And you never lose by a smile. So the secret is really if you can smile at everybody in every situation, which is more difficult rather than just people, I think one finds it easier to break barriers. So if you smile and talk to somebody, I think you can break barriers which otherwise you cannot break. And over a period of time, I guess I'm friendly as a person, so smiling is easier. That's it.
And what is your philanthropy activity? Do you have any specific area?
It's an easy question, but quite long. The answer is very long. I do a lot of work in the not-for-profit activity. I'm associated with 17 colleges in Mumbai, 8 schools, 2 hospitals, a skill development center, and I'm a trustee of 3 temples. I don't take a penny from any of these institutions, all not-for-profit, and I'm very, very passionate and excited about all this activity. So huge amount of not-for-profit business activity that I do.
Time you give a lot of time.
A lot of personal time, money, take an interest, and it's for a long period of time. It's for the last 20 years.
Okay. This question I asked to the philanthropists. In India, if you look at philanthropy, we have something called Hurun Philanthropy List, which is basically the list of top philanthropists in India who's donated more than 10 crores. I'm not sure if you've read about Azim Premji being the #1 philanthropist.
Of course.
That's basically from our list.
Sure.
One question I ask is, in India, most of the philanthropy is done through religious institutions, temple, mosque, church. Would you consider religious donations philanthropy?
We do give religious philanthropy or donations, but I would say 99% of my philanthropy is not in religious purposes.
Okay. How much would you donate every year?
We don't have a figure like that, but it keeps on growing.
Okay. I'll get back into when we do the next philanthropy list.
Sure.
What are your hobbies? What do you do marathon? I've seen you. That's amazing. I can barely run 10 kilometers, but you do.
I
think the half
also
marathon
run
recently.
10 kilometers nowadays.
But you did half marathon recently.
No,
right?
I did 10 kilometers this time.
Okay.
Yes. So 10 kilometers I do, and I gym 3 days a week. I do yoga 2 days a week. I run 1 day a week. And I take off 1 day a week. So every day 1 hour in the gym or running.
And what are your hobbies?
Oh, I enjoy all this activity which I talked about, and that's my hobby really.
And do you invest into art?
Not really. Nothing substantial. Very little. Very, very little.
And one question on the business side. So I'm getting mixed opinion. For example, if you look at the Oberoi model, they don't have a lot of land bank. They're more like a just-in-time. If they see an opportunity, they acquire land and they develop it. And they have a specific math in terms of why it may not make sense to hold land and develop business. But you, on the other hand, you own a lot of land bank. And what do you think is the right approach?
There's no right approach.
Okay.
Different people have different approaches. You wear a black shirt, I wear a white shirt. You don't wear a tie, I wear a tie. It's just an approach that is there. Doesn't really make a difference to the business as long as you're delivering good products and serving the market and serving the customer. Doesn't matter. The approach is irrelevant. So I don't think there is a right or wrong approach. It's just different. So different people have different approaches. We think that having a land bank makes it easier for us to really create master planning for large tracts of land, which you cannot do if you're just taking up a project and trying to do it in a short period of time and completing it. So we take much longer periods of time to plan layouts, create masterpieces in each location, try to see that the amenities are very, very high end in each of the locations, which gives quality of life which is different. But it's just different. I don't think we are better or worse.
Would you advise people who own massive land bank, which has been idle for the last 10 years, to hold it, sell it? Or?
As I said, it's different people will have different models depending on their state of mind, their age, whatever thought process. And I think Mr. Oberoi has a fantastic model, and I think our model is excellent too, but it's different.
No, I'm referring to more of new entrepreneurs, or not new, young entrepreneurs in the real estate.
I don't think the young entrepreneurs can follow my model. No way. It takes a long period of time to get into the model that I run.
Okay, got it. So I would suggest for them it would be best if they...
Yeah, they have to follow Mr. Vicky Oberoi's model. Yeah.
Okay, great. And I think last few questions. Would you invest outside of real estate? Have you considered?
Well, my son has an oil and gas business,
Energy,
including energy, and so that's there as a business. We do some hotels, we do some retail, but nothing so great as a percentage of my total investments. My focus is on real estate. My son has a lot of interest in the energy part of the business. So between us, yes, we have a lot of diversity in the whole activity.
What do you think about AI, blockchain, Bitcoin, all these words?
Oh, it's see, what happens is every generation must come out with new activities, new ideas, new projects, new things. And I think that creates a growth process which is extraordinary. And I think it's beautiful to see all these built up that takes place. I mean, everything I think is very, very exciting, and I'm very excited about all these new things. But it doesn't mean that you do everything that is done in the world. There's no way you can do. And for the young people, it's good because these are things which they are being brought up with, and obviously they'll do better than the rest. But does it mean that everybody must get into that business? The answer is no. So we should do whatever we are doing extremely well rather than wanting to jump from A to B. But if there is an opportunity of doing something different, there's no, like my son, he got into energy. I least expected he would. I didn't think, that was an interesting line. He found it interesting. And
was there a debate? Was there a long discussion?
There was long discussions, but the end result was known in the begining.
It's like you wanted to get into real estate.
Yes, like my father was not happy. In fact, he was petrified. But I got into it. So there's no question of all that. So you don't succeed with your son or daughter.
And your role model, that's now, and then continuation with that. Now, I witnessed it during our real estate summit. The moment the young entrepreneurs like Abhishek and Anand, when they saw you, the respect that they had for you was really moving. Abhishek, he came the moment he saw you, came and touched your feet, and it was really nice to see. How do you look at all of them?
I think it's their goodness, really, because Abhishek has himself been extremely successful, and I look up to him for so many good things that he has done. So it's mutual regard and respect. I mean, I'm older than him, so probably there is a tradition of respect to an age. But otherwise, we mutually regard and respect each other. Maybe I didn't touch his feet, but it doesn't mean that I don't respect him or his ideas or successes. So we'd all, I look up to young people for their successes, their ideas, their thoughts, their movement, and I think it's mutual.
And who has been your role model?
Oh, dozens and dozens and dozens of them, including Mr. Loda. And
I shall definitely tell him today.
100%, please do tell him. We do look up to the ideas and the things that come up into the whole thing. As I mentioned that day also, Mr. Omkar Babulal Verma. And I said that he's doing fantastically because he saw land where I only saw slums, and he said this is a potential for me to have land availability, and I said, oh, this is all full of slums, and he said this is the land for me. So there will always be people you look up to in different aspects of things which didn't occur to you, or they handle it better than you. So it's not a matter of age at all.
And your free advice that you would give to young real estate entrepreneurs?
I think the first thing is that money is very, very, very important. But if money is the only thing that you look at, you can never be great. But I'm not devaluing the value of money, and the importance of money and the care you need to take for money is absolutely there. But your vision has to be far bigger than just money. And you say, I want to be a billionaire. If that is your only objective, I don't think that adds meaning to life. It is like saying, I live my whole life to eat. It doesn't make sense, but for a man who doesn't have food, maybe it makes sense. And so I don't think that is the quality one should lead. The second is, when you create a vision for yourself, the vision has to be inclusive. And inclusive means that the stakeholders who are with you, whether they're your customers, whether your suppliers, whether your contractors, whether your employees, whether people who deal with you, I think that inclusiveness is very important. The moment you become inclusive in your thought and process, in terms of inclusiveness of making all these people find value in what proposition that you have, then I think complete change takes place. And the third is really that you should speak from your heart, work through your heart. Your mind only should give you a direction, like a compass is. So you're going north or south, depending on how your compass shows that you should be going, or a Google map now. But the drive should be a passion. So your mind has to take over and say, okay, this is what I need to do in terms of it. But that cannot be the end of it. The end has to be a passionate drive to reach that place. And if you don't have that drive, you can never reach something which is extraordinary. It has to be passionate, it has to be from your heart, and it should be absolutely clear as to what you want to do. But if you have no passion, at some point of time you'll stop working, at some time you will give up, at some point of time you're falling down, you will not want to get up again and run. So all these things are important to see that you have a drive and passion to do what you are doing. I think these three things would be interesting.
Thank you, Dr. Hiranandani. It was fantastic talking to you.
Thank you.
I would take away a lot of lessons for myself.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.